Welcome along, fellow time travelers and strange historians. This time around, we're going to travel back in time to check out some of my favorite historic photos of John Lennon's Gypsy Caravan. Before I begin, please like and share the show and kindly subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Now please join me around the campfire. In addition to the caravan, I am going to show you some historic images associated with the homes belonging to John Lennon and Ringo Starr. Many of the photos that I'm going to show you have never been seen before. This story begins with John and Cynthia. In full disclosure, I am friends with people who knew Cynthia very well, and by all accounts she was smart and kind and a very generous lady, as well as a talented artist. She was born Cynthia Lillian Powell on September 10, 1939 in Blackpool, England. She met John Lennon when they were both students at the Liverpool College of Art in the late 1950s. They began dating and eventually married in 1962. Cynthia gave birth to their son Julian on April 8, 1963. On the 15th of July, 1964, John Lennon acquired a distinguished residence nestled within the St. George's Hill estate in Weybridge, Surrey, England. The house was named Kenwood. Originally known as the Brown House, its construction dates back to 1913. The guidance of the Beatles' financial advisors, Dr. Walter Strack and James Isherwood, led Lennon to this purchase. He paid £20,000 for it. That's approximately $520,000 in 2023. The property encompassed 1.5 acres, with both the dwelling size and garden's expanse carefully regulated by the building scheme. Despite reputedly harboring reservations about buying Kenwood, because it was kind of located in a dorky area with lawyers and accountants and stockbrokers, Lennon invested a staggering £40,000 to jazz the joint up. That's approximately $1 million in 2023. So altogether, it cost him about $1.5 million. His modifications included reducing the room count from 22 to 17, enhancing the landscape of the grounds, and even erecting an outdoor swimming pool on the premises. Check out this article that was published in the Daily Herald on Wednesday, July 15, 1964. The Secret House of Beatle John. The new home of Beatle John Lennon and his wife, a long way from the fans. Okay, here we go. The article was written by David Crosby. No, not that David Crosby. Well, maybe. Was it? I don't know. Probably not. Okay, here we go. The big Tudor-style house has what estate agents like to call an elevated position, with commanding views of the countryside around it. There are 6 bedrooms, 3 a reception, 2 bathrooms, a large luxury kitchen, and 8 box rooms. The grounds are large and secluded, the drive long and winding and half hidden by fir trees. And more important, the whole place is very, very difficult to find, which is why Beatle John Lennon and his wife Cynthia have just paid £20,000 for it, their price for a piece of peace. At the moment, the Lennons live in a state of siege in a top-floor flat in Emperor's Gate, Kensington, London. The doorbell disconnected, the telephone ex-directory, the blinds always drawn. But, as John said yesterday, quote, "We cannot go on living like this. I must be able to lead a private life with my family. The fans are wonderful, but I have to think of my wife and child." So, to a house in Surrey, 20 miles from London. The present tenant, an American, told me, quote, "Mr. and Mrs. Lennon were one of many couples to look round. They liked it immediately." End quote. I'll be moving out at the end of the month, and the Lennons then intend to redecorate the house. End quote. Said John, quote, "We won't be doing it ourselves. We will just say what we want and the decorator can get on with it. There's a big garden, but I don't intend to do any digging. Physical work isn't my line." End quote. The Lennons will have no live-in help, but they will employ a day nanny for the baby, a cleaner, and a gardener. The house is on a luxury estate with its own swimming pool and golf course. But luxuries are not what they are looking for. All they want is peace and quiet. And that, when you're a Beatle, costs you £20,000. And that's the end of that article. Being a child of wealthy parents can be kind of cool. Imagine getting all sorts of cool stuff. Now, of course, sometimes wealthy parents shower their children with gifts to compensate for, not being around. And that certainly seemed to be the case with John Lennon, who was, like so many other men in their 20s, have to work their butts off to build careers and be able to make money to provide for their families. And so, when Julian Lennon's birthday was coming around, John clearly wondered, what can you get for a little boy who has everything that money can buy? Aha! How about a vintage-looking Gypsy Caravan? What 4-year-old wouldn't want such a stellar gift? Go on, tell me you wouldn't want one when you were 4 years old. When you were 4, you weren't sitting around saying, gee, I just hope for my 4th birthday I get me a nice vintage Caravan. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I did. And even though there's at least one article that I'm going to read to you that suggests it was a vintage Caravan, the general consensus seems to be that it was custom built to Lennon's specifications. Now, for starters, the proper term for what Lennon wanted was Vardo. But most people don't know what that word means, and so I'll probably just keep saying caravan. But for those of you who like history, a Vardo is a type of traditional horse-drawn wagon or caravan that was historically used by Romany people, often referred to as gypsies, as their mobile homes. A Vardo is a type of traditional horse-drawn wagon or caravan that was historically used by Romany people, often referred to as gypsies, as their mobile homes. Vardos are intricately designed and highly decorated vehicles that served as both living spaces and a means of transportation for these nomadic communities. The term Vardo is commonly associated with the Romany culture in Britain. They often feature intricate carvings, painted patterns, and decorative elements that reflect the cultural identity of the Romany group that created them. They typically include sleeping quarters, storage areas, and sometimes a small cooking space. The layout was carefully designed to maximize space and accommodate the needs of the occupants. Vardos are mounted on wheels, which made them mobile and allowed the Romany people to travel from place to place. The design of the wheels and axles varied depending on the specific region and era. Vardos often have windows on the sides to allow for ventilation and natural light. The roof is curved, resembling a traditional horseshoe shape, and is made to withstand various weather conditions. Vardos are emblematic of Romany culture and the nomadic lifestyle of these communities. They serve as symbols of identity and are often considered works of art in their own right. While traditional Vardos are associated with historical Romany culture, modern versions and interpretations of Vardos have also emerged. Vardos are not only functional vehicles, but also cultural artifacts that provide insight into the history, traditions, and creativity of the Romany people. And so the one that John Lennon had ordered embodies the distinctive Burton design and is commonly referred to as the Showman Caravan. These types of wagons were popular in the late 19th century, and they were crafted by teams of blacksmiths and wheelwrights and woodcarvers and gilders and painters, and were used as homes for travelers. Burton Vardos typically measure around 10 feet in length and about 12 feet high. They have wheels of uniform size both at the front and rear, and the sides of these caravans are characterized by their straight vertical design, often featuring a pair of windows on each side to allow for natural light. And this is what the Gypsy Caravan looked like. Pretty cool, right? Once it was all painted and ready to go on July 24th, 1967, it left the workshop, located at the Fallon's Coachyard in Chertsey, and went off on a journey to Kenwood, located about 11 minutes away. It must have been a wild scene to be in the area watching the horse-drawn psychedelic Gypsy Caravan grace the roads on its journey. Imagine you could travel back in time. There was a brief black and white newsreel from that era that documented the occasion. The narrator even said it was, quote, about 4,000 pounds worth of gaily painted, renovated rolling stock, end quote. I'm not sure what the narrator meant by 4,000 pounds, but whatever it was, he was wrong. He most certainly did not mean it weighed 4,000 pounds. It probably weighed about 1,500 pounds. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. If you think differently, please let me know in the comments below. And it certainly did not cost 4,000 pounds. As you can see, we have the receipt. And it shows that John Lennon paid just a bit less than 1,700 pounds. By the way, that's about $4,200 in today's money. The film footage shows John Lennon's caravan in Fallon's courtyard at Chertsey, and it shows the caravan along its journey. It shows various shots with the flowers painted on the side. It also shows the back of the caravan. In fact, there was a mural for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That's why some people refer to it as the Sgt. Pepper Caravan. What do you like better? Do you want to refer to it as the Sgt. Pepper Caravan or the Gypsy Caravan? I'm thinking Gypsy Caravan, right? What do you think? I'm going to go with that. There was also a close-up of two doors at the back of the caravan showing two chickens painted on them. There's also a traveling shot looking over the horse's back, pulling the caravan. And there's a shot of the caravan coming down a hill. There is a close-up of the wheels of the caravan showing the brakes on the back. And finally, there is a shot of John Lennon's house in Weybridge, including the swimming pool, and it pans up to the house. On July 25th, 1967, the following article appeared in the Daily Mirror. The headline was, "A Beatles Yellow Caravan Starts a Row." And here's the text. Beatle John Lennon's birthday present for his 4-year-old son Julian last night shattered the peace of the Stockbroker Belt suburb where he lives. That's the present above. A 93-year-old Gypsy Caravan, painted bright yellow and hand-painted flower designs in rainbow hues on the sides, to match his now famous psychedelic Rolls Royce. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. So we already know that it was custom built for John Lennon. So clearly it wasn't a 93-year-old Gypsy Caravan. So sometimes you just can't believe anything you read. The other thing that's interesting is it says that it matches his now famous psychedelic Rolls Royce. I haven't done too much research yet on John Lennon's Rolls Royce. I am going to, by the way, for another show. But I thought that the Rolls Royce was painted long after, or maybe not too long after, the Gypsy Caravan. So this was interesting to see. It cost about £2,000 to renovate and repaint the caravan to John's designs at the garage in Chertsey, Surrey, where the Rolls was painted. Interesting. But Miss Kathleen Bodden, a widow who lives opposite the Lennon home at St. George's Hill Estate, Weybridge, Surrey, was not impressed, as the caravan, pulled by one horse and pushed by another, turned into John Lennon's garden. Miss Bolton ran in tow and shouted at Beatles staff, quote, "Why should we have to put up with this?" End quote. She was told, quote, "Go away. It's private property." End quote. Teenagers waiting outside jeered at her as she left. Miss Bolton said later, quote, "It is an absolute hideosity. It's vulgar. I'm going to report this to the Residents Association." End quote. John Lennon knew nothing about the row. He is in Greece. Okay, so that's the end of that article. I hope you're enjoying the show so far about John Lennon's Gypsy Caravan. Before I continue, can you please do me a favor and like and share the show, and kindly subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Now let's talk about the paint job. Here is what fascinates me. We Beatles fans know so much about the Beatles, don't we? We know about their music and their lyrics and their recording sessions and their wives and children and homes and cars and clothes and their personal possessions. We even know about their friends. And yet there are still subjects out there, such as the Gypsy Caravan, that we know very little about. And oftentimes, we are subjected to inaccurate information. For example, I've read a whole bunch of articles and info online about the Gypsy Caravan, and nearly everything was wrong. So let's work together here, shall we? To try to put some pieces of the puzzle together. For starters, we can see that the Gypsy Caravan was painted in a bright, vibrant, and psychedelic style. But by who? Or by whom? By who or whom? Who? Whom? Let me know in the comments below. Should it be by who or by whom? Many people seem to think it was painted by The Fool. Now, for those who are watching and listening right now who are not diehard Beatles fans, you're asking yourself, The Fool? Who's the fool? What do you mean the fool? There's a fool? I don't understand what he means. I don't get it. What do you mean? There's a guy, there's a fool, it's a woman, it's a man, it's a dog. What is it? What do you mean the fool? I don't get it. What are you talking about? Well, the fool was not one person. The fool was a Dutch artist collective that gained prominence in the 1960s, particularly during the psychedelic and countercultural movements of that era. The group was known for their vibrant and colorful artwork, as well as their involvement in various creative projects, including album covers for well-known musicians. The Fool's best-known artworks are those that they created for the Beatles in 1966 and 1967, including the clothes they wore for the 1967 TV broadcast of All You Need Is Love, the clothes worn in the I Am the Walrus segment of the 1967 Magical Mystery Tour TV film, the 3-story mural painted in psychedelic colors on the facade of the Beatles' Apple Boutique in London's Baker Street, decoration to John Lennon's piano, and one of his Gibson acoustic guitars. By the way, I'm going to talk more about the Fool another time, but for now, let me just say that the Fool did not paint the Gypsy Caravan. How do I know this? Well, for several reasons. For starters, one of the founding members of the Fool was Marika Koger. Yes, I pronounced that right. Marika Koger. Come on, you know we're at this point in the show right now. Say Marika Koger 10 times really fast. If you could do that, let me know in the comments below. Marika Koger, Marika Koger, Marika Koger. You can do it. It's really not that difficult. Trust me. I do it all the time. It works. It's fun. It's a great vocal exercise. It's a fun thing to do. Marika Koger. Cool name. In an interview, she said that she was staying at John Lennon's house to paint his piano, and they were talking about how he should have his Rolls Royce painted. She said that she saw the painted gypsy wagon in his garden, and that she suggested to him, John Lennon, that he paint the rolls like the gypsy wagon. She said that John thought that was a great idea, and she said, quote, so he contacted the genuine gypsies who made the wagon, and they actually did the painting on the rolls, end quote. Okay, so that clears that part up a little bit. I mean, okay. It wasn't genuine gypsies that painted it. Trust me on this. We're going to get there. But clearly, she had nothing to do with it, and the Fool had nothing to do with it. So, who painted it? In Cynthia Lennon's memoir, she said that the work was done by a company that specialized in barge and caravan design. Well, we of course already know that J.P. Fallon Limited, a coachworks firm located in Chertsey, Surrey, was responsible. And so it seems it was a gentleman named Steve Weaver, who, by the way, also went on to paint ornate patterns of scrolls and flowers on John Lennon's Phantom 5 model Rolls-Royce. If you think or know otherwise, please let me know. But by all accounts, Mr. Weaver does seem to be the artist who deserves all the credit. Now, let's jump over to this article that was written in German that a fan, thank goodness, was kind enough to translate for me. It is as follows. Let me introduce you to Lennon Jr. John Lennon's 4-year-old son presents himself as a proud owner of a Gypsy Caravan. I paid a short visit to John Lennon at St. George's Hill in Weybridge, England, and got a real interview with his son, 4-year-old Julian. Julian posed for me on the colorful caravan his daddy had given him. But, as he admitted to me, the grand wagon was rarely used by him. Julian prefers to play in the bushes on the part on St. George's Hill. By the way, the Sgt. Pepper sign that originally adorned the back of the caravan, as you can see, disappeared. Sgt. Pepper is out. In is the Beatles' newest music, Magical Mystery Tour. And then in the caption beneath the photo it said, quote, this is my wagon. Here I am the king, end quote. Julian Lennon sits proud on his stage carriage. But more than this, he loves to play in Daddy's garden at St. George's Hill. Sadly, even if Julian Lennon would have loved to have played in and around the Gypsy Caravan every day, it was not to last. John and Cynthia and Julian had been living at Kenwood since the summer of 1964. Unfortunately, John Lennon's extramarital affair with a married woman, Yoko Ono, played a significant role in the breakdown of his marriage to Cynthia Lennon. Cynthia had stated that she was aware of John's affair with Yoko, and she felt hurt and neglected as a result. And so Cynthia filed for divorce in 1968, citing John's infidelity as one of the reasons. Supposedly, she received a settlement of £70,000, which is about $295,000 in 2023. John supposedly told his wife, who he cheated on and was abandoning, that it was as if she won the lottery and she needs to take that money because she really wasn't worth any more than that. But wait, there's good news. John Lennon supposedly also created a trust for Julian so that he would receive £100,000 when he turned 21. Oh, wait, except there was a stipulation that he had to split that equally with any other children born to Lennon. If any of that information is incorrect, please let me know in the comments below. Either way, once John hooked up with Yoko, John saw his son, Julian, about once a year, and sometimes went years without seeing his son at all. As you likely know, while John was cheating on his wife with Yoko, she herself was also married and had a young daughter. Word has it that John gave £100,000 to Yoko's husband so that he would grant her a divorce. If you think or know otherwise, please let me know in the comments below. But I did read that more than once in several different sources, but chances are the only ones who really know the true facts are the parties who were involved. Ladies and gentlemen, in the comments below, it would be interesting to know your thoughts about the settlement that Cynthia got from John. Think about this. John and Cynthia met in college. She was with him before he had anything. He had no money. He had no prospects. But she cared about him, and she loved him, and she had a child with him, and she stuck with him through some pretty rough times. At the time of their divorce, John Lennon was worth millions of dollars, and he gave his wife $295,000. What are your thoughts about John abandoning his wife and child and not doing anything to help them live the type of life to which they had become accustomed? I haven't really thought about this matter. I'm curious to know what you think. Anyway, now let's talk about John Lennon's island. Yes, I said island. You knew that John Lennon had an island, right? Yeah. The island of Dornish was located, still is located actually, off the western coast of Ireland. It's situated in Clew Bay, County Mayo, specifically within the vicinity of the larger Achill Island. Back in 1967, John Lennon paid a mere £1,700 for the island, which is about $8,200 in 2023. This serene island was acquired to be a sort of sanctuary of tranquility for Lennon and his loved ones. And despite the incredible amount of effort involved, John Lennon actually had the Gypsy Caravan brought to his island, Dornish, where he would stay. Following his separation from his wife Cynthia, the island lay dormant until John Lennon extended an invitation to a gentleman named Sid Rowell, known as the King of the Hippies, and another gentleman named Timmy Walsh. This was in 1970, and that ushered in an era of communal living. Over the subsequent 2 years, approximately 25 free-spirited hippies, which means naked, referred to themselves as the Diggers, embraced Dornish as their home. Their endeavors included cultivating their own crops and raising children amidst the island's embrace. The commune thrived until 1972, when a destructive fire engulfed the island's supply tent, marking the end of their collective journey. Now, I could talk about the island in another show, but for those who are interested, after John Lennon was assassinated, Yoko Ono chose to part ways with the island, and she sold it for nearly £30,000, and she gave those proceeds to an Irish orphanage. Today, Dornish serves as a grazing expanse for livestock. Above and beyond that, I don't know anything else about John Lennon's time at Dornish, so if you happen to have any information like that, please share that information with all of us in the comments below. In the spring of 1969, John Lennon purchased Tittenhurst Park, a 72-acre estate outside of Ascot. In addition to the Georgian mansion, the estate had several residential structures. On the northwest portion of the property, with its own driveway and entry, was the former Keeper's Lodge. John Lennon had Julian Lennon's birthday gift brought to Tittenhurst Park and parked in front of it, where it was exposed to the elements day and night and pretty much began to erode. John didn't seem to care much about the caravan or about restoring the gardens or the structures on the property and bringing them back to their former glory, as George Harrison had done with Friar Park. And so after living on this legendary property of priceless beauty for only a couple of years, John moved to the United States and never returned to Tittenhurst Park or the United Kingdom. And so for the next couple of years, Tittenhurst Park's residents included their friend and assistant, Dan Richter, nice guy by the way, and his family and some of Lennon's staff. John and Yoko then lived in a hotel room in Manhattan overlooking Central Park. And then for reasons unknown, they rented a really creepy old apartment in the Village. And then John and Yoko purchased a beautiful apartment in the legendary Dakota apartment building on the Upper West Side. In September of 1973, John put Tittenhurst Park up for sale. Ringo found out about it, and I guess he said, "Hey John, I'll buy it." And John Lennon's like, "Okay." So the way Beatles bought things and sold things were different than how normal people would do that sort of thing. And so there was some sort of exchange of ownership that I don't think included any actual checks being written, or maybe even any transferring of funds. Who the heck knows how that works? In fact, if there's anybody out there who's an expert on Beatle money and how they did stuff, please share with us all that information, if you can, in the comments below. And so we don't really know how that all went, except that it did happen on September 18th of 1973. And so by that time, much of the Beatles' finances were finally kind of settling into place and going where they needed to go, and John and Yoko had an incredible new piece of real estate. And so yeah, it was owned by John and Yoko, and not some company that was associated with the Beatles. And so a couple of weeks later, Yoko kicked her husband out of his own apartment. But don't worry, John wasn't going to be lonely. Don't worry, it's okay. It's all right that Yoko kicked him out of his own place. It's fine. You know why? Because they had an assistant named May Pang. She was on their payroll. And so Yoko told May that part of her new job responsibilities would include having sex with her husband, John Lennon. Wasn't that nice? How cool is that, ladies? Let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. If you ever get tired of your husband and you want to kick him out of the house, would it ever occur to you that you ask your assistant to have sex with your husband so that way he won't go gallivanting around with strangers? I have no idea. I have no idea. Ladies, you tell me. Gentlemen, let me ask you a question. If you get married and nothing is under your wife's name, and then you finally buy a piece of real estate together, and a few weeks later your wife kicks you out of your own home, what's your response to that sort of thing? To just say like, "Okay, well, it's all yours now, honey"? Just wondering. I have no idea. I don't know what your response would be. Please let me know in the comments below. And if your wife says to you, "Listen, I'm kicking you out of your own apartment, but don't worry, you could have sex with my assistant," what's your response to that sort of thing? Just curious. Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, back at Tittenhurst Park, Ringo renamed John Lennon's recording studio as Startling Studios. He then turned the estate into a residential recording studio where various artists could go and record. And let me tell you, there were some cool dudes that went there. And I know this firsthand because I spoke to many of them. I've befriended some of them for my book series on Tittenhurst Park, which you are welcome to check out and buy on Amazon or wherever you buy books from. Check this out. Slade was there. Whitesnake was there. Def Leppard was there. Judas Priest was there. Phil Collins was actually there. He was there with another band, and he was playing the drums for everybody. So that must have been pretty cool. Anyway, I could talk more about that another time, but check this out. These incredible musicians would sleep upstairs in the bedrooms and then go downstairs to eat and hang out and record. And when they weren't doing that, they had full access to the grounds. In fact, here is a photo of musician Ron Kelly. Nice dude, by the way. Cool guy. He was a great help to me when I was putting together my Tittenhurst Park book. He was in a band called Stormer that was signed by Ringo's company. And he had this photo taken of himself in front of the keeper's cottage. And you can see the caravan just where John Lennon left it. Following the assassination of John Lennon in 1980, Ringo decided to spend more time at Tittenhurst Park with his family and his wife, Barbara Bach, and mostly used the studio for his own projects. He then called in a vintage caravan restorer named John Pickett. I've seen his name spelled different ways, but John Pickett seems to be what it is. If you know differently, please let me know in the comments below. And commissioned him to repair the Gypsy Caravan and make it awesome again. That took about a year. And so in September of 1983, that Gypsy Caravan was returned to Tittenhurst Park and was parked next to the swimming pool, where it was supposedly used as a sort of changing room. On the night of October 15th, going into the 16th, in 1987, a severe weather event, often referred to as, quote, the Great Storm, end quote, hit the southern part of England, causing widespread destruction and disruption. The storm was characterized by exceptionally strong winds reaching hurricane-force levels in some areas, with gusts exceeding 100 miles per hour. The storm resulted in the uprooting of millions of trees, leading to extensive damage to buildings, infrastructure, and power lines. Transportation networks were severely affected, with roads blocked and trains canceled and flights grounded. Tragically, 18 people lost their lives due to the storm, and many others were injured. The Gypsy Caravan survived and was not destroyed by falling trees. But many parts of Tittenhurst Park were a mess. And so about a year later, in 1988 or 1989, Ringo sold Tittenhurst Park for £5 million to the president of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. And I'm going to talk about him and his ownership in another show, but let me just tell you that unlike John and Ringo, he actually invested a great deal of time and money and love into restoring the gardens and the Museum of Trees to their former glory. So I personally and professionally am very happy that he bought the estate. Now, as far as Ringo, I am not an expert on his personal history, and I have no idea where he lived between 1989 and 1999. So if you happen to know, please let us know in the comments below. But I do know that in 1999, he purchased an estate in Cranley, Surrey. The property comprises a 17th century mansion surrounded by 200 acres of land, which included gardens and ponds. At the time, the estate cost just £2 million, but Ringo had extensively renovated it, which increased its value. And so, in September of 2014, Ringo put that estate up for sale for £20 million. A year later, on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th of 2015, at Julian's in Beverly Hills, an auction was held that contained more than 1,300 clothes, instruments, pieces of jewelry, and other items owned by Ringo Starr, and raised a total of $9.2 million. Among the items was the back panel from the Gypsy Caravan featuring the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band logo. There were 2 photos, and the accompanying text was as follows: Caravan panel and photograph. The back panel of Lennon's famous psychedelic painted caravan featuring the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band drum logo. The caravan itself was purchased by Lennon in 1967 as a gift for son Julian's 4th birthday. Lennon had the caravan custom painted with a Sgt. Pepper theme by The Fool, who also painted his famous psychedelic Rolls Royce in a similar motif. All right, stepping out of this for a second, we know that's not true. Lennon and family reportedly used the caravan for vacations before it made its final journey back to the garden of Tittenhurst Park in Ascot, where it remained until Lennon's assassination. Stepping outside of this for a second, all right, come on. That's not true either. Give me a break. All right, going back to this. Starr acquired the caravan and had it fully restored in 1983 by John Pocket. They call him Pocket, I call him Pickett. I'm pretty sure it's Pickett. This portion of the caravan features a black window with drape and the chains that originally held the back gate. But most iconic is the bold Sgt. Pepper logo featured on the back panel, together with a framed image of the caravan as it was kept at the Starr's English country home in Surrey. So the panel is 64 3/4 inches by 73.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And the photograph 22 by 32. So it was put up for sale in their catalog for $6,000 to $8,000. Okay. All right, everybody. Want to play a game? It was listed, right? You just heard me say that. 6K to 8K. All right? 6,000 to 8,000 smackaroos. How much do you think it sold for? Come on. Take a guess. Don't be afraid. Come on. We're all friends here. Don't wait for me to tell you. I'm going to count to 3, and when I'm done, I want you to have a number in your mind. 3, 2, 1. Actually, I didn't count to 3, did I? I counted down. Counted down? Okay, same thing. All right, what you got? What's your number? What would you have paid as a diehard Beatles fan? All right, maybe as memorabilia, maybe as an investment. What do you think? They wanted between $6,000 and $8,000. So you're thinking, oh, $7,000 maybe. Ooh, that would be good. Well, what would you have paid? $10,000? $25,000? $50,000? $100,000? Come on, don't be afraid. Tell me what you... Come on, this is a game here. Let's have some fun here. Tell me what you would have paid. I'm waiting. Okay, here we go. The final sale price was $125,000 for just the back panel from John Lennon's psychedelic caravan featuring the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band logo. What do you think? Fair price? Let me know in the comments below. In fact, if the person who purchased it is watching or listening right now, can you do me a favor and contact me? I got some questions. Alrighty, since now we know that the back panel is out there someplace, where the heck is the rest of it? That's what I want to know. That's what you want to know. Well, check this out. Supposedly Ringo just abandoned it when he sold his last house. Or maybe it was another house, I don't know. No one seems to know, but I ask you this. What did this beautiful, wonderful, fabulous Gypsy Caravan ever do to the Beatles to warrant this kind of neglect, this kind of abuse, to constantly be how would you like to be this caravan? And it's like you think that, Julian, oh my God, this is so wonderful, right? You're the caravan right now. I love this little boy. This is wonderful. He's going to love me and take care of me forever. And then that doesn't happen. And so then John Lennon brings it to this beautiful property and the caravan's all happy and excited, like, oh, I love this place. How wonderful, the Museum of Trees. I love it. And then John Lennon abandons it. And then Ringo gets it. And then he kind of brings it back to health and things all happy, right? It's like, oh, nice. I feel so clean, right? And it loves it. It's all happy. And then Ringo brings it somewhere else and then he abandons it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. Why would you treat this beautiful Gypsy Caravan in such a way? But that is what happened. And so somehow, some way, somebody seems to have gotten a hold of it. I think, I don't know, I read a whole bunch of different stories that Ringo sold his house and just kind of left the caravan there to just kind of rot. And I guess the new owner's like, all right, well, I don't want it. Maybe some Beatle people want it. I don't know. And so there seems to have been some efforts to raise money to restore it and to allow it to be used for fundraising efforts, but none of that seems to have come to pass. And I'm not sure why. I've read different articles, and there was even a website at one point, and it just kind of seems like a lost cause. And I don't understand why. So, Beatles fans, why don't we team up and kind of jump on this together? Let's track down that Gypsy Caravan and find out what's up. In fact, if the person who has the Gypsy Caravan, or the persons who have the Gypsy Caravan, if you're watching this right now, can you contact me, please? I'd like very much to be able to use, whatever platform it is I seem to have here to help out if I can. On behalf of Beatles fans and on behalf of the caravan, than to have just been forgotten and neglected and abandoned, I think that restoring the Gypsy Caravan to its former glory and allowing it to be used for charitable purposes so that Beatles fans like me can see it and touch it and take photos with it is a worthy endeavor. So let me know. How's that sound, everybody? I mean, maybe together we can do something to help get things rolling. But either way, let's assume that never happens. Maybe it will happen, but let's just say it doesn't. I want to ask you, yes, you who's listening to me right now, my fellow Beatles fans, what do you think about this? Where do you think the Gypsy Caravan should be today? Now, we all know that Yoko Ono, for a variety of reasons, is really disliked by countless millions of Beatles fans around the world, and she never really seems to have done too much to try to balance the scales, and I don't understand that. But it makes one wonder if perhaps doing something like acquiring the Gypsy Caravan herself and paying to restore it might be a good idea. I mean, it's not like she can't afford it. In fact, I don't know, why not create 100 of them and donate them to organizations around the world? Sure, it wouldn't be the original, but the original would still be done, okay? But it sure would be cool to see a reproduction of this incredible artifact in person. It seems like restoring the Gypsy Caravan should be the sort of thing that Paul and Ringo and the estates of John Lennon, which is Yoko, and George Harrison, which would be Olivia, would be interested in this sort of thing. I mean, imagine if they did this. Imagine if they created a virtual reality tour, right? For Beatles fans or anyone else, really. And you could put on virtual reality goggles and you could walk around the Gypsy Caravan and see it, right? And you could go inside of it and see it. And maybe even go on a sort of time travel journey to see it on the road, traveling through the streets of London in the 1900s or the 1960s, right? Or at Tittenhurst Park or on John Lennon's Island. Think about all the cool things that the Beatles could do, because they got them, for crying out loud, they got the money to do stuff like this, right? Imagine what a great gift that would be for Beatles fans. I simply can't wrap my mind around why the Beatles company or companies, why they gave up on embracing new technologies and trying to do incredible things for their fans. Instead of selling the same old crap, plastic crap from China over and over and over again to their fans, right? Why not do something really creative, really unique, something really different, right? In fact, I don't want to give them a bad idea right now, but if you guys are listening, Beatley people, the people that work for the Beatles, and you're thinking, hey, we can make some cheap, crappy plastic caravans in China and then sell them to Beatles fans, don't do that. Don't do that, please. Okay, please. People in the United Kingdom need jobs. Okay, if you're going to do that, make them in the United Kingdom. Okay, that would be a cool gift. Do that and give your fellow Brits some work. Okay, do you mind? Do you mind? Can you do that? That would be really cool if you're going to do that. But I think the virtual reality stuff would be kind of cool. So what are your thoughts about this? Would you go and see the restored Gypsy Caravan if it was restored? How about a reproduction of one? Can you think of any charitable causes that could benefit from something like this? And what about the virtual reality experience? Would you be interested in that sort of thing? Perhaps with narration. You ready? Perhaps with narration by Ringo or Julian Lennon. Huh? And in the end, who do you think this Gypsy Caravan truly belongs to? I mean, look, it was a gift to Julian Lennon. And then it was at his dad's house. And his dad abandoned it. And then Ringo got it. And then Ringo abandons it. And so I guess the new owner of the property is like, all right, well, let's give it away. Why the heck didn't his father give it to him? Why didn't John Lennon make arrangements for Julian to always have it? What gives with that? Hey, Julian, if you're listening to me right now, if you're watching this, can you contact me? I got some questions. Let's talk. I get the feeling a lot of Beatles fans would be very interested to know your thoughts about your magnificent Gypsy Caravan. Share your memories about it, your ideas about what should happen to it. That'd be really cool. What do you think, Beatles fans? Would you like that? Would that be cool? I think it would be. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this time travel adventure to check out some of my favorite historic photos of John Lennon's, well, I guess Julian Lennon's, Gypsy Caravan. Kindly remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because there will be more videos like this one, and I really hope you'll check those out too. Please check out the links below to learn how to support my research and production. Specifically, I'd really appreciate it if you could become a member of my channel and or join me on Patreon. You could also leave a super thanks in the comments below. Kindly be kind to all non-human animals, and please don't eat them. They don't like that. And remember, for the benefit of compassion for all living things and their own health, all of the Beatles chose a plant-based diet. And please do yourself a favor and go to a local shelter and adopt a cat or a dog. You and they will be very glad that you did. Until next time, I wish you safe travels on all your journeys.